Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take source material, really interesting stuff, and pull out the key nuggets of knowledge for you. Today we're jumping into, well, the sometimes tricky world of human relationships.
Right, and specifically the language that pops up when things get tense.
Exactly. We want to unpack some specific phrases, some vocabulary that you hear in arguments.
Yeah, not just what they mean on the surface, but, how they actually shape the whole conversation, the whole dynamic.
And we're using an English learning resource as our guide here. It's got this great scenario.
A very relatable one, I think.
Oh, definitely. A classic couples misunderstanding. So as we listen in, metaphorically speaking, we'll grab those exact words.
The ones that can maybe make things worse, or...
Or maybe, if you understand them, help calm things down. So let's unpack this.
Okay.
So it kicks off with Veronica. She sounds really frustrated right from the start.
Boiling over, yeah.
She hits Stephen with, "Where have you been? I've been trying to get a hold of you for hours."
And you can just hear that anger.
Instantly. So that phrase, "get a hold of you," what's hiding behind just trying to call?
Well, it's more than just contact, isn't it? Get a hold of implies effort, maybe repeated effort.
Right, like she's been trying and failing.
Exactly, and that failure feels like being ignored.
Yeah.
Or like she wasn't important enough for him to be reachable.
Ah, okay. So it's not just logistical frustration, it's personal.
That's where the resentment starts, yeah. That perceived slight.
And it ramps up really quickly. Veronica says she was waiting in the restaurant for 3 hours.
3 hours?
And you didn't even have the decency to call me. And then, do you have any idea how embarrassed I was?
Oof. Okay, two big things there.
Yeah.
First, decency. That's a loaded word.
It sounds quite formal, almost.
It is. And it implies a kind of basic moral standard, politeness, consideration.
So she's saying he failed a basic human test, almost.
Pretty much. She's judging his character, saying he lacked fundamental respect.
Yeah.
That really elevates it.
And the question, do you have any idea?
That's not really a question asking for information, is it?
No, it feels like an accusation.
Exactly. It's rhetorical. It's meant to make him feel the weight of her embarrassment, her anger.
To force empathy. Or maybe shame.
Both, probably. It's designed to make him realize the depth of her feeling, implying he's been oblivious or just didn't care. Puts him straight on the back foot.
Yeah, definitely defensive territory. And she doesn't let up. She says, "Yeah, right, I've heard it all before."
The classic dismissal.
"I'm not going to take any more of your empty promises." And then she hits him with the specifics. "This is the 5th time you stood me up in 2 weeks."
Okay, so I've heard it all before. What's that doing in the argument?
It sounds like pure disbelief, like don't even bother with an excuse.
Precisely. It signals that trust is broken. She's basically saying, I know your pattern, and I don't believe anything you're about to say. It shuts down the conversation before he can even explain.
Builds a wall.
A big one. And then stood me up. We all know what that means.
Failing to show up for a date or meeting, right?
Yeah.
Especially without notice.
Right. But it's more than just missing an appointment. It feels very personal, very disrespectful.
And 5 times in 2 weeks?
That context makes it huge. It's not a one-off mistake. It's a pattern. It paints a picture of him being unreliable, maybe uncaring.
And it leads her to what she thinks is the root cause.
Which is?
You need to get your priorities straight. I'm tired of you putting your job first all the time.
Right. Get your priorities straight. That's another heavy one.
It's not just about managing his time better, is it?
No, not at all. When someone says that, they're usually talking about values. What's really important to you?
So she's saying his values are wrong, or at least misaligned with the relationship's needs.
Exactly. She's framing it as job relationship in his mind. And that, for her, is the fundamental problem. It's a direct challenge to what he holds important.
It places the blame squarely on his internal choices, his character, almost.
Yeah. It's just, the problem isn't just circumstances, it's him. It's his fault for not prioritizing correctly, in her view.
So Stephen tries to jump in here. He says, there was an emergency at work.
A plausible excuse, maybe?
A fire alarm at my office building today, and I was stuck. But like you said, she's probably past listening at this point.
Yeah, I've heard it all before, wall is up.
So instead of engaging with that, she drops, well, the ultimatum.
Ah, yes.
You know what? Maybe we should just take a break.
The break. Okay.
I need some time to think about where this relationship is heading.
Right. Heading just means direction where it's going, but take a break.
That phrase is loaded, isn't it? It means pausing the relationship, stepping back to think.
It does, but it's famously ambiguous.
Yeah.
And it immediately makes you think of
friends. friends, Ross and Rachel. We were on a break.
Exactly. It's the pop culture touchstone for this phrase, and it perfectly highlights the core problem.
Hmm.
What are the rules?
Can you see other people? Is it a real breakup, just temporary?
And the source material actually mentions this debate. Team Rachel saying, no, it's not over. Team Ross saying, yes, it was a break. Anything goes.
Which just shows how unclear it is.
Totally. It sounds like a step back to reflect. Not a full stop necessarily, but the lack of clear definition.
That's where the danger lies.
That's often where more misunderstandings happen down the line. What does a break actually mean to each person? Is it a cooling off period, or is it basically a breakup with the door slightly ajar?
Yeah, the intention versus the interpretation can be miles apart.
Right. It can be used strategically, too. Sometimes it's a softer way to initiate a breakup. Sometimes it's genuinely about needing space. But the ambiguity is key.
Okay, wow. So we started with this really heated moment between Veronica and Steven.
A very common kind of argument.
And just by digging into a few key phrases, we've seen so much from getting a hold of someone,
To the insult of being stood up,
the judgment in decency and priorities.
and that minefield of taking a break.
Yeah, it really shows how much is packed into everyday language, especially when emotions are high.
Absolutely. Understanding these specific bits of vocabulary gives you, the listener, the kind of shortcut.
How so?
Well, you start to see beyond the surface words to the underlying feelings, the history, the expectations, even the power dynamics in the conversation.
You grasped the subtext.
Exactly. The unspoken stuff that's often driving the conflict.
Which leads to a really interesting thought, doesn't it? If phrases like on a break or get your priorities straight can mean such different things to different people, how much of our own communication, maybe our own conflicts, relies on assumptions? We assume the other person knows exactly what we mean by our words.
That's a great point. We often operate on these unspoken definitions.
So here's something to think about. What does it truly mean for you in your life to get your priorities straight, especially thinking about how your priorities impact the people around you?
Right. And how could you maybe articulate those priorities more clearly?
To potentially avoid needing your own deep dive into a misunderstanding later on, something to chew on.